What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Ultra League Premier Classic Cup featuring a triple Shadow team with the focus being on Shadow Tangrowth, a Pokemon that I think is very versatile in the current meta because of its coverage move Rock Slide. I'm sure you guys know that Charizard is the dominant Pokemon in the current meta. You're either running a Charizard or you're running anti-Charizard Pokemon like Rock types or Electric types or Water types, and the thing about Tangrowth is that it beats all of the anti-Charizard Pokemon, but it also has access to Rock Slide, allowing it to completely one-shot Charizard and also deal massive super effective damage to the other flying types in this meta because they are typically quite glassy, so the likes of Dragonite and Gyarados really don't appreciate that Rock Slide coverage either. So I think Tangrowth a really strong Pokemon in this meta. Honestly surprised I've not seen it too often, but that's just how things go. A lot of people like to stick with what they know. In the lead, I'm going to be running Shadow Ampharos, a Pokemon that a lot of people are excited to use now with Brutal Swing. Initially, I tried to run Shadow Electivire, but it just seemed way too inconsistent, so instead I went for the Shadow Ampharos, and then as a closer, I've got Shadow Staraptor, one of the most devastating closers in the Ultra League Premier Classic Cup. Now before we get into the battles, let's start with the question of the day. Do you agree with Niantic's decision to retire the Classic Cups from next season onwards, or would you prefer if they kept them permanently? Let me know in the comment section below and let me know why, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle here, we're going to be leading into a Shadow Swampert, not a great lead, going to instantly Say Swap into the Shadow Staraptor, and my opponent is choosing to stay in here. They're going to go for a Hydro Cannon. This will do massive damage, but we can tank it. They swap into a Shadow Dragonite, try to snipe me. I'm barely able to get to a close combat, and my opponent actually shields there, which is great because close combat is of course resisted. It would have only done about 50% of their health, so that is great for me that they shielded. But Shadow Dragonite has a massive attack stat, so these Dragon Claws are really going to do massive damage, especially with the Dragon Breath adding up. So I go for a Thunder Punch. We're able to take out the Dragonite. My opponent is switch locked and they make the mistake of coming in straight away, so I'm able to swap into Tangrowth, get massive damage with those Vine Whips here. They come in with a Shadow Machamp. I'm not going to bait, I'm going straight for the Power Whip. We land it in nearly one-shots, so my opponent doesn't react in time, and I'm going to be able to fully Vine Whip, farm down the Swampert and take that game. So you can see there the insane damage output of this Shadow Tangrowth. Into the next game here, we lead into an Alolan Golem. We're going to swap into Tangrowth here. We bait out a Charizard, and this is great because we've got Rock Slide. Rock Slide gonna be doing massive super effective damage. It would one-shot the Charizard here. My opponent's going to throw on the CMP tie. Very nice counting there from them, but they go for the Blast Burn. I correctly shield it. I'm able to get to another Rock Slide here. Rock Slide gets the shield from my opponent here, and my opponent is actually going to go for another Dragon Claw just before we get to the next move, but I'm actually going to shield it up and make sure I guarantee I have switch advantage here. Rock Slide takes out the Charizard, and we just beat a Fire type with the Tangrowth. My opponent comes back in with the Alolan Golem here. They go for a Rock Blast, which is good to know because Rock Blast isn't going to do an awful lot of damage here. And of course, Wild Charge would be resisted, so there's no point in throwing it there. My opponent tries to swap and catch a Brutal Swing there, but I do not throw. I'm going to swap into my Staraptor, able to get to a Brave Bird. Brave Bird one-shots the Sylveon here, and now they're going to throw straight away here. I think what they should have done is at least try to farm me down, but I don't think it would have mattered here because I've got two Brutal Swings loaded. The first one actually is enough to take out the Golem, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Dragonite. Just a regular Dragonite here, so that is fine. We're going to overfarm massively here, and my opponent is just going to go for a Dragon Claw just before I throw, and now they swap into a Snorlax. We go for a Thunder Punch here, unfortunately, and we have to go for another Thunder Punch here, and now I will swap into my Shadow Staraptor. But we did bank a Thunder Punch or Brutal Swing, so that is good. Here, they're going to go for a Body Slam. They are going to be able to get to another Body Slam before I get the energy on my Staraptor for the close combat, which is not ideal here. I'm going to overfarm here, go for a CMP tie on the next Body Slam here, and this actually gets the final shield from the Snorlax, which is great here. So I'm going to let the Staraptor go down. I will come in with the Tangrowth and fully commit to the farm down from this range. And my opponent's actually going to swap back into the Dragonite, so I continue to farm just a little bit, and then I swap into the Ampharos, go for a Thunder Punch, one more Volt Switch, takes out the Dragonite there. They've got their own Shadow Ampharos in the back. If they've got Focus Blast, that will be enough to take me out. So I overfarm as much as possible, go for the Power Whip. It takes out the Ampharos, and here I can get to a Rock Slide. My opponent recognizes that, and they concede the match. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Party Hat Charizard. Pretty good lead for us here. They're going to swap into Trevenant. This is super ideal here because we resist everything Trevenant can throw. Shadow Ball, even though it's double resisted, actually does big damage here, so I'm actually going to CMP tie them with the next charge move here. We go for a close combat and it does take out the Trevenant. We had 100 energy, so I'm just going to go for a Brave Bird straight away into the Charizard, coming back in. Brave Bird goes unshielded. We take out the Charizard here. They've got a Walrein in the back, and yeah, they're just going to concede the match there. Not a lot they could do there, unfortunately. I just kind of hard countered them from the get-go there. Into the next game here, we lead into a Dragonite. We're going to overfarm here, and once again my opponent's going to throw just before we get to the back-to-back charge moves, so very nice timing there from them. This time we're actually able to get off this Thunder Punch up against the Dragonite, and we're going to go for a second Thunder Punch here, but I'm afraid that I might get farmed down before I get to the next charge move here, so I'm actually going to swap into the Shadow Tangrowth here. My opponent swaps into Escavalier, and this is one of the biggest problems for Tangrowth, but Rock Slide does about 50% of their health, and I'm actually going to be able to get to another Rock Slide here up against this Escav here. They're only able to get to a Drill Run, which is resisted. I'm actually going to undercharge this here and then hope to get a little bit of farm on my Shadow Staraptor. So they didn't get too much of a farm there, so I'm actually able to farm them down before they get to a charge move. They have a Walrein in the back, and I think I should have stayed in there, but unfortunately I swap into the Ampharos here, and yeah, that's not great because I've basically just given this Walrein a ton of energy. I'm going to shield here, but I think they've got back-to-back charge moves, and they have, so unfortunately I don't think I'm going to be able to win this game, but I do actually take the Icicle Spear. I tried to go for the close combat, but I over-tapped, and I think I tapped on somewhere else on the screen first, and unfortunately I lose that game. But actually a pretty close ending there. I might have been able to tie with them, but unfortunately we do lose that game, so GG's to them. Into the next game here, we're leading into a Ampharos Mirror. We're going to go for the Brutal Swing. We actually get a shield from my opponent. Now I'm going to swap into my Shadow Tangrowth here. We do tank the Brutal Swing. They come in with a Charizard here, and it's a CMP tie, so this is obviously not going to be a Blast Burn. So Dragon Claw actually doesn't take us out, so I'm able to get to the Rock Slide here, and Rock Slide does take out the Charizard there, so they didn't want to commit both shields so early into the match here, but this is still kind of problematic here. We have to get rid of this Ampharos no matter what, because if it sees the Staraptor, it's pretty much game over. Unfortunately for me, they do go for a charge move here, allowing me to get that Volt Switch through. I get to the Brutal Swing. I'm going to throw it straight away, and Brutal Swing takes out the Ampharos. What do they have in the back? They've got their own Staraptor, but they've got a purified one. We've got the Shadow, and we've also got a shield advantage, so this is going to be an easy Brave Bird, taking out the Staraptor and taking that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Shadow Gliscor. Not an ideal lead here, but we do actually resist the wing attacks, so I will stay in initially here. We go for the Brutal Swing here, and my opponent's going to go for a charge move just before we get to the next Brutal Swing. I will shield it up. It's a Night/Bait, which is not ideal, but that's fine here. We go for a Brutal Swing. We get the shield from my opponent. We're going to swap into the Staraptor. They come in with a Lapras. We're going to go for the CMP tie, close combat. At the same time, they go for a Surf. We get a shield from this Lapras here, and they're actually going to go for a Surf and fully undercharge it here. Very nice play, and we barely don't get to the close combat here. If the new mechanic was working fine, then we might have been able to get off the charge move, but unfortunately it pretty much doesn't work ever, so we don't get it off there. I don't expect an Ice Beam here, but they are running it, and they take out the Tangrowth here, and yeah, this is not ideal whatsoever. I'm going to shield up. It's a Night/Bait, and unless they've got a Gyarados in the back, I don't think I'm going to be winning this game here. And they've got a Snorlax, so yeah, I think I'm not going to throw here. Just let them take me out. I could have just top lefted. Doesn't really matter. Superpower takes out my Ampharos, and we lose that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game here, we're going to be leading into a Surf Fetch. So a bit of a tricky lead here. I'm going to let them throw, and I'm not going to commit any shields here. Leaf Blade does massive damage here. We're going to go for a Thunder Punch, although we do lag there, so they get 2 counters through for the price of 1, and unfortunately I tried to swap out there as well and it just didn't go through, so unfortunately we get fully farmed down. This Surfetched has enough for a Brave Bird. Wait, no, they don't. They have 1 away, so I do know that I can safely no shield it. Unfortunately, now they are at another charge move, and this Surfetched has basically taken out 2 Pokemon, which is certainly not good. They're going to come in with a Walrein here, and things are not looking great for us because we only have 1 Vine Whip energy advantage. They will be able to outpace me here, but my opponent catches a Rock Slide onto their Swampert here, which is a very strange play here because I'm really hoping that they're going to go for a Hydro Cannon straight away, which is exactly the play that they go for, meaning I'm going to be able to fully farm them down, come out with 100 energy. They're still 1 Powder Snow away from the charge move, but here I've got 2 moves loaded, but I'm actually going to swap into my Staraptor and go for the Close Combat instead, and Close Combat takes out the Walrein, and I'm able to take that game there. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game here, we're going to be leading into a Trevenant, so this isn't actually so bad to see in the lead. We can go for a Brutal Swing, and if they no shield, I'm going to swap into my Staraptor. They actually shield, and I just swap anyway, so yeah, anyways, we're going to go for a Close Combat here. This will do massive super effective damage, and we do get a shield here. My opponent's going to go for a charge move just before we reach ours, so I'm actually going to shield up here and then over farm here and then go for a CMP tie, forcing them to waste their energy, and we actually just take out the Walrein, which is great. They're going to come in with a Swampert. Shields are down. We can get to the Brave Bird here, and Brave Bird is going to be able to one-shot the Swampert, and Staraptor is absolutely going off here. I'm going to come in with the Tangrowth here, just force them to throw a Shadow Ball. They actually go for the bait for some reason, I'm not sure why. Now they have to go for the Shadow Ball. They do go for it. I can swap into the Ampharos. I'm easily going to be able to get to a Brutal Swing, and Brutal Swing will be taking out the Trevenant from this range, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. By the way, I've got a bit of a sore throat, so if my voice does sound a bit strange, then just do know that's the reason. But anyways, into this next game here, my opponent's going to lead with a Charizard, safe swap into a Machamp, and I've seen this team a few times, not sure who made it, but it's actually kind of difficult to deal with, even though typically we do hard counter 2 of their Pokemon, and the 3rd matchup should be neutral, but it's a Charizard double fighting team here. Unfortunately, we do have to shield up against that Machamp, and we're going to go for a Brave Bird here, and they do shield up as well, so we now have a shield advantage. Actually, I didn't shield up against the Machamp. What am I talking about? It was only a regular Machamp, but up against a Shadow, that is a lot trickier here. But this is fine. They're going to go for a Dragon Claw. They get a shield from me here. I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch. And if my opponent does shield, we're going to swap into the Tangrowth here. And this is going to be tricky. We have to call if it's a Brave Bird or not. We're going to call for it. And it is the Brave Bird. So correct call there. We're going to overfarm. Go for a Rock Slide here. And we should have enough residual energy to get to another Rock Slide before Charizard gets to a Blast Burn. This is just going to be a Dragon Claw, which we tank, and now we can go for the Rock Slide here against this Charizard, and we one-shot the Charizard and take that game. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I've faced that team quite a few times. I think that might be my only win there. So I think I will be showing another battle up against that team later in this video. But here we lead into a Goodra. And this is not ideal at all. I think all 3 Pokemon do lose to Goodra, so not very good. I know they could run Sludge Wave, and they are running it, so that's a very good shield there. I'm going to go for a Power Whip here up against this Walrein, and my opponent does shield it up, so perhaps we should have just gone for a Rock Slide there, but in hindsight, I didn't know they were going to shield. pretty obvious, but we're actually able to hang on with that Icicle Spear, go for a Rock Slide, and we get both shields from the Walrein here. So now things are actually looking to be not so bad. Unfortunately, they do get to a move here, and I think I should have let this go through. I do shield it up, and I'm going to overfarm here. They come back in with the Goodra here. We go for the Brutal Swing, and we're going to swap into the Staraptor here, farm them down, but this Walrein barely has too much energy. We're not able to get to the close combat, and that is not great. But once again, we barely hang on with that Icicle Spear damage. We go for the close combat, take out the Walrein, and we need a Gyarados in the back. They've got Escavalier, and yeah, we're not going to be able to beat it here, so we just let them counter us down. So GG's to that opponent there. Very nicely played there. Into the next game here, we're going to lead into Charizard. My opponent is core broken with the Shadow Ampharos because they swap into a Walrein. I'm going to let the Icicle Spear go through. Going to overfarm here, go for a Thunder Punch here, and probably go for the back-to-back if they do shield, which they do. I'm actually going to overfarm here because I'm thinking a Thunder Punch barely wouldn't take them out. So I'm actually going to continue to overfarm here. Now go for the Thunder Punch, and this will be taking out the Walrein, but unfortunately they shield up and they're actually able to outpace us here. So I'm going to decide not to shield there. Going to come in with the Tangrowth. My opponent makes a mistake here. They come in with the Charizard. We get to a Rock Slide before they get to a move. Rock Slide one-shots the Charizard once again, and my opponent just concedes the match there. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game here, we lead into another Walrein here. Very good lead for us here. They're going to swap into an Escavalier. I'm going to go for a Thunder Punch here. Unfortunately, because we take neutral damage from counter, we can't just swap into the Staraptor straight away because it's not actually the best matchup. We're going to resist every charge move here, but Mega Horn probably would one-shot us. Shadow Staraptor is very classy. We're going to go for a close combat here on the CMB tie. We take out the Escavalier, and we're going to see that they come back in with the Walrein. We're going to debuff our defense straight away so they get less farm. And we do get the final shield as well. I'm going to come in with the Ampharos here, and my opponent comes in with a Dragonite. I think I should have overfarmed just a little bit there. We go for the Rock Slide here. Rock Slide going to do massive damage to this Dragonite. We've got a decision to make here. Should we shield or not? I'm going to choose to let it go through. Superpower nearly takes me out, and unfortunately, there's no point farming them down there. I was hoping I could Volt Switch, farm them down before they get to a move, but I'm barely not able to, and that's going to cost me now because this Walrein is going to be able to get to an Earthquake up against my Shadow Ampharos before I get to the next move. An Earthquake is easily going to be enough to take out the Ampharos and take the game for my opponent. So GG's there, very nicely played. Into the next game here, and we're going to be leading into a Crustle. And I think this is a fairly neutral matchup here. I'm going to shield up here. I want to throw at the correct timing, but unfortunately 4-turn up against 3-turn is very difficult to get into those situations where we're actually able to throw 2 Volt Switches here. I kind of need to spam out my charge moves before they get to the next move here now. So I'm just going to go for 1 Volt Switch before throwing each time. And here we've gotten both shields from this opponent, and we do massive damage. We swap here into Tangrowth. My opponent responds with Dragonite. We're able to get to the Rock Slide here, and Rock Slide up against Shadow Dragonite is able to one-shot it. They've got a Gyarados in the back. I'm going to get to another Rock Slide here. My opponent recognizes that, and they concede the match there. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game here, we lead into a Shadow Walrein. They're staying in, so once again, I'm expecting that they're double weak to the Ampharos here. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back charge moves here, go for the Thunder Punch here, and this will be taking out the Walrein. I'm actually going to go for a Brutal Swing this time. I expected a catch, wasn't sure what it would be on. They actually come in with a Gliscor here. I'm going to swap here just before they get to the Night Slash here, and make sure that they can't nuke me with an Earthquake here, because we've got a Flying type, but they get the boost with the Gliscor, and that's not ideal. I didn't want to shield in this matchup here, but now I'm forced to. I'm going to go for the close combat. It is resisted, but I should take them out from this range, and luckily for me, they do go and throw a charge move here. Night Slash, gonna be enough to take me out here. I'm gonna come back in with the Ampharos here as I'm 1 Volt Switch away from a move, and even with the buffed attack, they're not able to farm me down. We go for the move there. We come in with our Shadow Tangrowth here. My opponent comes back in with the Walrein. They're gonna go for an Icicle Spear, and now they make a mistake. They swap in Charizard and they don't commit to the Blast Burn here, so I can safely farm to the back-to-back Rock Slides. And you guys know Rock Slide is easily gonna one-shot the Charizard here. We take out the Charizard, and we've actually got a Power Whip loaded as well, but we go for the Rock Slide here, easily enough to take out the Walrein, and I'm able to take that game there. So GG's to that opponent there. Alright, so going into the next game here, we lead into a Charizard. They're going to swap into a Shadow Machamp, so this is the game I was talking about. We're going to go for a Thunder Punch here up against the Machamp. We get a shield, we're going to swap into the Staraptor here, but unfortunately, they're going to be able to get both shields from me if I'm going to be able to take out this Machamp. We have to shield the first one, we have to shield the second one here. We will come out with a ton of energy loaded, so I'm actually going to farm up to 100 energy, bait this Charizard with a close combat here, really hoping they shield, but my opponent doesn't shield here, so now we're going to go for a Brave Bird here, but unfortunately kind of messed that up there because we had to throw all our energy instead of taking them out straight away with a Brave Bird, and now this Sirfetch'd has a shield advantage here. So even though we've got 2 Pokemon remaining, this is not looking great. I tried to catch the Brave Bird on Ampharos. That's a mistake here. They're able to overfarm here, go for a Leaf Blade. I need back-to-back moves. They're going to be able to get to a Brave Bird here, and Brave Bird one-shots the Tangrowth, and I do lose that game. So very well played to my opponent there. And into the final battle of this video, we lead into another Walrein, so pretty common to see. We're going to overfarm. My opponent catches on a Trevenant, very nicely played there. Thunder Punch, of course, is resisted. We're going to overfarm, swap into our Shadow Staraptor now. And unfortunately for this opponent, we just completely wall them so far. We're going to let the next move go through, and we should be able to fully farm them down. And we are able to. I'm actually just going to go for a Brave Bird straight away here. Don't really know what's going to come back in. It is the Walrein here, and Brave Bird will lower my defense by 1 more stage, meaning they get less of a farm with the Powder Snows, which is great for me. I'm now going to go for the Thunder Punch straight away, and luckily they don't catch this move this time, so that is good. I'm actually going to shield the Icicle Spear here, and we are unfortunately outpaced to the next charge move, but I will let the Icicle Spear go through. We're going to go for a Thunder Punch here. My opponent doesn't make a catch, which is great, and I'm thinking it's probably Charizard in the back, and of course it is, and we're going to be able to get to a Rock Slide here before they can even get to a Blast Burn. Doesn't matter, we had a shield, but Rock Slide one-shots yet another Charizard, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And with that being said, let's get into the shoutouts from my previous video. So firstly, we've got Yandy Andy Fan, who says, this season is way better than previous ones. Nidoqueen is basically unplayable now. I'm so tired of those poison double dark teams. That team is basically as good as dead because their best Pokemon sucks right now. Maybe Golbat will become a decent replacement, but of course it can't replace Nidoqueen's good steel coverage. And yeah, certainly Nidoqueen, a massive difference between this season and previous seasons. Before, it could just Poison Fang its way through really bad matchups and still come out on top. So I really think that nerf was necessary, and it feels a lot better knowing that Nidoqueen isn't just going to run rampant through your team, even though you've got strong counters to it. Next, we got Absol Train Best, who says, I would trade my soul for the old meta. The new meta got stale in a week, seeing Medi, Lantern and Noctowl 4 out of 5 times as set. And yeah, honestly, I've got to say the variety in this new season is even lower than in previous seasons. So from one perspective, you could say that it gets boring very quickly, but I guess from another perspective, you could say that it's quite easy to counter the Pokemon that you're seeing because there isn't a lot of variety. So I understand where this trainer is coming from. And finally, Jasper0930 says, I think this season is slightly better. People think that buffing Wing Attack makes it too OP, but it's still just a Vine Whip clone. overall seeing less Trevenants is pretty cool. I'm going to be honest, I think the wing attack buff was completely unnecessary. I'm not saying that it's OP, but there were quite a lot of flying types that were already very strong. I think flying is one of the best typings in the game because when we think about Pokemon Go Battle League, it kind of favours defensive typing, so that's why steel types are very strong, even though steel type moves aren't very good, and two of the worst defensive typings in the entire game are rock and ice, two of the best counters to the flying typing. So the fact that those are two of the worst defensive typings means you don't see them too often unless they're paired with another typing, so it kind of made flying types very strong as it was, and now they are even stronger. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.